what I'm finna say, I'm gonna feel like you. But back when I was little.
I feel like a lot of us post and ghost, right? We just put the content out there and we never come back to the platform.
You're not posting for the algorithm. You're posting for yourself. Posting consistently like you're an episode or like you're a TV show is saying, how consistent can I be to myself?
After a while, like she said, consistency does just get rewarded on those platforms.
First of all, I'm a Cap Cup girly. Baby, I was recording the other day and it was like storage full, mid-video. I said, darn.
It's easier to have a plan based on some goals and then make a decision to pivot and understand how it's still connected to goals than to just be out here winging it.
If you get caught up in, the algorithm, like, well, you're just going to go into a burnout.
But I was so tickled at myself because I looked like a meme. Welcome back, everybody. This is another episode of A Marketing Podcast. I am your host, Kayla.
And I am Angelina, and let's get into today's episode.
So this is episode 9. And after doing some thinking about things that were really helpful to our audience, we landed on this conversation about social media content. So we've obviously talked about social media before, but we wanted to talk more specifically about like how to go about posting and creating social media content. And I'll tell you, part of this conversation happened because we were working with one of the Launch Point clients, and we were talking about how we wanted to like approach the work. And we had given Angelina some instruction to do like some research and some strategy, some content planning. And then after doing some of the work with the client, she was like, well, I actually like to shoot the content first. So we had some conversation about that, and I felt like it would be a good conversation to have here for everybody else, because there isn't, I mean, we talk about ways, but there isn't one way to do anything. And I think there's some benefits and some drawbacks to any route you take, but we wanted to kind of explore those too. So I would say if I had to like title the different approaches to social media, at least the two that we have been kind of like going back and forth about, I would say that the differences are one is more improvisational, and I would say one is more structured, right? And so the difference to me is really about where you start. So for improvisational, I think that would be, to Angelina's point, where you start with creating the content, and then once you've made it, you're able to kind of figure out what you have from there. And then the other way is structured, which is really where you're planning the content out first, and then you go shoot it and capture it. So I wanted you to kind of give an overview of the improvisational route, the kind of on the fly, the guerrilla content creating, if you will.
Guerrilla content is crazy.
You don't know that term?
No.
Guerrilla warfare? You've never heard that?
No.
Bless the school systems, y'all. Guerrilla warfare is like, it's probably standard to y'all now. Back in the day, folks in the army used to march collectively to go fight wars. And guerrilla warfare was more so like hiding in places and jumping out and popping out and sneak attack. So guerrilla content creating is a similar thing where you just kind of doing it on the fly. You're not planning it. But anyway. Okay. Language lesson later. Go over some of the like reasons why you feel like that route works well.
So let's take it back. So when we were planning with our first client, our food, that did the food Carmion. So we was doing content creation with her, and Kayla was like, okay, well, you need to structure it out, and you need to plan it, this, that, and the third. And so I feel like with me, I like to do things spontaneous. So when doing things spontaneous, it's like I will do better than just writing down everything and then boom, make it happen. Because I did do that because I'm like, okay, well, maybe this is a new trajectory of learning things. But I noticed that even though when you write things down, they don't always go as planned. But nothing's wrong with writing things down. I'm already a perfectionist. So being a perfectionist, I want everything perfect, doing this, that, and the third. But in life, I've learned that you just got to let things, just flow. So I made this basically batch ideas that I wanted to do for the client. And when I did that, I was like, I got to record it and I was like, this is not going as planned. It's not going how I wanted, because we end up like not recording some of the whole content ideas that we were supposed to, and then it's just like different things pop up that I didn't originally had scheduled and wrote down and batch created when I was writing down the ideas. And I was just like, all right. So then when I realized after that I had gathered like all the information that I had already recorded, I was like, this is kind of differentiating from what I had already planned and prepared. So I was like, because when I had my own social media, I would just automatically just like come up with ideas in my head and then implement them and then write them down later. But with a client, it's kind of a different approach. It's like you could go with the flow of things and then see where you are, and then that's how you gather that information. I feel like God has given me the ability to come up with ideas in my head and just be able to tell somebody or get the vision through the camera lenses or tell somebody what I wanted or whatever. So, yeah.
So the benefits of doing it that way as opposed to kind of planning it first would be mostly because of the way things change.
Yeah. But I feel like it's not bad to already have it planned out, though, just because that's like a structure, a foundation that you can go off of. And I like the article that you just sent me about content buckets. And so, like, I do not like reading a lot, but I like to see things kind of like in visuals of where I could break it down as easily as possible for myself to understand. And so when I read the article, and I had already knew about like content buckets and content pillars before, like with other marketing YouTubers and stuff that I watch and everything, but I see it as, just imagine everybody close your eyes, just have like 3 buckets. So boom, you have uno, dos, tres, 3 buckets. And on it, so give me an example of a client that we're having and their niche or whatever they're doing. Anything.
I can't think of anybody real, but let's just say real estate.
Okay, real estate. So you have 3 buckets. Boom, boom, boom. So with your real estate, you're thinking houses, you're thinking selling, you're thinking, what else can you say? Customer service. All right, so boom. So in the first bucket of real estate, I could say marketing sales for the houses. So that would be 1 content bucket. So you have houses, selling, 1 content bucket. The second content bucket will be probably like referrals, customers, engagement, or just customers as a whole. So that's the second content bucket. And then the third one could be how to build your clientele, or could be different house ideas, like the different houses that people like, things like that. So boom, you have realtors, so you have the different rental properties. So boom, that's a content pillar or a content bucket. And then you have your customers, that's a content bucket. And then you have your selling and what you actually do. So with that, I feel like that would be better because it's very broad and you could pull. So you have all these content buckets and you could just pull from either one of the content bucket whenever you're running out of ideas. I feel like doing it that way. And you could also like write down the different things that could go into each bucket. And with that being said, like you will never run out of ideas because you could just write it, but you don't have to go verbatim by what you have in the content buckets. If you go off into like a little water bucket, then that would be fine, but you just have that base.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, that's the foundation of what you were saying is why we plan in general, right? Why we strategize so that we know what we're doing, but also even keeping with that structure when it's time to actually create the content. I would say one of the main benefits of doing it that way is, especially when we're talking about us creating content for clients. So whether you're creating content for a client or you're creating content for yourself, not everybody is comfortable being in front of a camera.
Right.
And so if they do not know what they're doing, they are likely to freeze up. But when you tell people what we're doing, I mean, perfect example, we start doing outlines for the podcast because that made you feel more comfortable. It's the same idea.
Right.
Because what we don't want to do is get in front of the lights, in front of the camera. Now we wasting production time. Now we wasting money on all types of stuff because we were not prepared for the shoot. And so, yeah, you got the planning of the content part, but then being specific about what you plan to shoot when you go out to create content in any form. For some folks, they need to know exactly what's going on in order to make that time worthwhile. Otherwise, you in our case, us as the creators, if we're working with clients, we have to be very crafty. I mean, honestly, when I'm doing it, I feel like I'm pulling out my film directing chops. Like, you have to be very crafty about making people feel comfortable, and getting them to loosen up and kind of getting their mind somewhere else in order for them to behave in a way that's natural, so that what you capture is good. Because, you know, even if we went the route of the improvisational route of kind of just seeing what's happening, capturing it, and going in the back and then figure out what we can do with it. Sometimes what we can do with it ain't a whole lot. Or sometimes what we can do with it doesn't necessarily line up with what we were going for in terms of our goals or our objectives. It could be cool content, but it could not be at all what we were trying to do. And so, you know, to me, those are some of the benefits about structuring not just the strategy, but even what the shoot days are. I wanted to talk a little bit about just the process, and then kind of talk through like what that process could look like on either side, right? So whether you're the type to kind of do it on the fly, or whether you want to plan every single thing out, how that changes for each step. So the first part is obviously deciding what you're going to post. So in your case, where, you know, you like to be a little bit more spontaneous, in the case where you're out with a client, how are you figuring out what to post and or what to capture?
Okay, so on the beforehand, you need to know already like what your client is doing, whether, like you said, like it's real estate, that's food, that's event planning. You need to know what they're doing. And then on the back end, even if you're doing it personally or for a marketing agency or for marketing agency or firm, you then need to go back and look at your competitors. And we were doing this earlier, competitive research and analysis. And when you look at your competitors, you're not copying them, but you're just getting ideas and pulling ideas from the content that they already have. And you could be like, oh, and you might already have some ideas in the back of your head. So you're pulling your ideas, mixing it and pulling things from other people, creating a whole new content idea. So you want to be familiar, of already what you're doing, and then go to your competitors to see what they have going on and what you like about certain competitors that you can pull from. So once you do that, it's really just up from there. Once you know your basis, you then just want to, whatever you like or whatever is trending. Now, it's not all about going viral, but you want to post what is appealing to your audience. And I want to show you, because I was on TikTok earlier, and I was like, I need to show that in the podcast. So you could do this, basically SEO. It's on all platforms, but especially on TikTok, there's a creator search insights view. And it's like when you doing on Google, the first, when you type in something, the first thing that pops up. So you said real estate, right? So I could go to view, and this like just started like becoming like trending on TikTok, and we could say real estate. Okay, so I don't know why this is I don't know why I did pop up like that, but I typed up real estate. And I don't know why it had the first word, whatever was in the thing. It was like real baggy clothes. Is this your hair real? That's weird. So I'm gonna search again. I'm gonna say houses, because that's okay. Boom. So the first word you use, it'll pop up. I don't know if you can see it in the. Okay, you can't really see it, so I'm just gonna show you.
Oh, it starts to finish your searches. That's what you're saying?
Yes,
okay.
yes. So basically like SEO. And so look, when I look up houses, the trending videos for houses, house renovation, 1920 Spanish houses, Minecraft house tutorials, hidden rooms in old houses, cleaning houses before and after, all black houses. So like whatever word you're doing, and you could go and it's kind of like the stock market, like it shows you what's trending, and the red when it's depleting and things like that, you let's press house renovations. It shows you the analytics for that, and then all of the house renovation videos pop up. That is like so cool to me. So that's one way, like on TikTok, and it's also for Instagram. It's not in this way, but like on YouTube, just like SEO. And I just really finding what's trending, and then I actually have some research that I did that we could list in the link to the video. But it was like, it said 70% search based, 20% trending, and 10% self-satisfying. Self-satisfying is the type of content that you should post. And you don't want to be a robot. So you could flip up the numbers. So you could do 70% trending, 20% self-satisfying, and then things and so on like that. But that's just the base. But you want to, at the end of the day, find what your audience is liking. And you could always put your own little twist on it. So searching up things, what your audience like and what videos are trending is really good.
Mm-hmm. And so that's really helpful and beneficial, I think, especially when you start looking at like what you post specifically on what platform. And then I think for folks who like to do a little bit more planning, what you would want to do is start similarly, right? So doing the research, looking at what your competitors are doing, and then deciding based on your business goals, on your company's goals, communication goals, like what do you need to communicate? So that takes you back to like what she was saying with the content pillars and stuff. But when you think about like what actions you want people to take, then you think about what do they need to know in order to take those actions. And then from there, you're able to say, well, okay, well, if I want people to buy a house, well, some people need to know that I have houses for sale. Some people need to know what steps you need to take to buy a house. Some people need to know how to get their credit right in order to buy a house. Like when we're talking buyer journey. So if you start with those things and then you start creating the content buckets from there, right? So it's like, okay, well, there's an education need. So some of this stuff we need to be teaching people how to do things. Okay, some of it is they need to just be aware that something is for sale, which is big. Like, I feel like the promotional advertising category, a lot of folks can easily forget to do because, you know, we're over told that social media is not for really selling, it's for connection, and it is. But what good is all that connecting if I don't know what you sell and I don't know what I can buy from you? But if you think about it, if you start from on the structure side, if you start from your goals and objectives and your needs, those things start to kind of reveal themselves, right? So if we talk about an education category, we're talking about an advertising category. Obviously, for most platforms, we want followings. So we do need something that's going to be engaging. For some folks, that may be entertainment. For some folks, depending on what it is, it may be something motivational. Or it could be something lifestyle related. But these are the categories or the content pillars that kind of will arise after you look at, okay, well, what does my audience need to know? And then you can start creating ideas from there. So then you can go do research on the platforms and figure out, okay, well, if I need something, you know, entertaining or motivational or uplifting, what types of content exist on the platforms I'm posting on in that realm? What are my options? If I know I need to do some educational stuff, what are my options for that? And then you can literally list those things out. Like, and it'll be a combination of what's trending, what makes sense, what's practical for you if you're doing it for yourself or your company, what people are comfortable with, right? We know video is really popular, but not everybody's comfortable in front of a camera. And so some folks, you know, could take the faceless route. Some people may go just a completely like text-based educational route that goes to knowing your audience, right? If you know your audience likes to read, then you probably could do that. But it's just whereas I feel like the improvisational route kind of starts in the fire, like in the heat of things, and it sort of sorts things out after the fact. The structured route plans it all from jump. And that way, when you do go to record stuff, you know, okay, well, today, if I'm going to record 3 videos today, I'm going to choose these 3 videos based on my strategy. And so, like I said, there is no right or wrong way. And to be honest, if you are managing either somebody else's social media or your own, in reality, it's a combination of both of these, because like Angelina was saying, sometimes when you go out in the field, things don't go the way you plan, right? Something comes up, something changes. If we're talking about a process, if we talk about food, it's possible something don't turn out well, right? So being able to improvise on the fly is important, because we don't want to waste the time and the opportunity. And having a good eye means that sometimes you realize like, oh, there's an entirely different opportunity here that I didn't know. Sometimes it happens because, like you said, you do need to know what the client does. And that's a process. Like, so in the beginning, sometimes, you know, you think you understand what it is they do. You've asked them questions, but the reality is you don't know until you get into it with them. And so sometimes you may be in a moment and you're like, oh, actually, no, you never told us about this part. This is probably the most engaging, interesting part of this whole thing. Let's pivot this whole thing. You know, being able to do that is super important. But like you said, having the structure in place first is key, because it's easier to have a plan based on some goals and then make a decision to pivot and understand how it's still connected to goals than to just be out here winging it. And again, you can't wing it. You just, it takes some work on the back end to figure out, okay, how am I going to make this make sense? So you mentioned that on TikTok. YouTube has something similar, right? To figure out what you can.
There's more like Google though, like search engine optimization, where you just look up the word and whatever pops up. That's what it's more like.
To figure out what's trending.
Yeah.
So when you start talking about actually creating the content, right? Like going out, shooting on your phone, on your camera, whatever the case may be. I mean, I feel like it's really kind of two approaches to that too. You can batch record it, like you can plan a day, a certain time period, however long, however frequently you want to record a lot of stuff, or you can literally do it on the fly. And some people do it on the fly. Like I would imagine people who like provide a service to a person, so maybe hair or nails or waxing. Like you can't, I mean, you could, because I've done it. I have helped people batch record content for those industries. But if you want to have a whole bunch of different content, you probably just snapping pictures of your people as they come and go. That's kind of on the fly. And you could go ahead and post it, like to your stories, to your whatever. That's on the fly. That's okay. That works for some people. But then some people like to, I just need one day or one block of time where I'm just going to sit down and get it all done. So if you go the batch recording route, like what are some things that people need to like be thinking about or planning for to make that productive?
Mm-hmm. So one thing I would say is don't revolve your life around your content. Revolve your content around your life. And I think this goes with the spontaneous approach, because when you're just the cameraman that pulls up, or you just bring your equipment and you're just like, just be you, I'm recording. And I think that's where a lot of people could get into being shy around the camera, because sometimes when it's too structured, you can have an idea in your head, and if you tell somebody, that makes them, okay, I gotta get this right, I gotta do this, that, and third. Like, no, just be yourself, just chill, vibe, you know what I'm saying? So with that being said, like when you could tell them to just like, hey, for real estate, and they have a customer and you're recording, just sell to these people and I'm just going to be in the background recording. Or with food, as we did in the past with Hermione, just cook your food, do your thing, tell your story, and I'm just going to record. And that makes it more comfortable for your client to pick up on, or just be their natural selves when they can just do things spontaneously. So when it comes to actually creating the content, you, like I said, you can give them the gist of what you want, but just record their life. Just say, hey, let me pull up on your busy day and just let me follow you around if it's okay, and let me just record your life. And you could do this, and make sure that when y'all are recording, that you have a SD card to back up your footage, or a lot of storage on your phone, because if you don't, baby, I was recording the other day and it was like storage full mid-video. I said, darn. That's crazy. So, and I had to go through the delete stuff, and it was just acting weird. But that's besides the case. But back to content creating. Yeah, just like let them be themselves. And as a social media manager, even though one of the parts of being a social media manager is recording, you kind of just want to let your client know that I'm not here. You just do your thing and I'm not here. And and then that's another thing. You have to pick up if your client is introverted, extroverted, ambivert. And if they're more introverted, that's when you have to be more behind the scenes. If they're extroverted, you might can spark a conversation with them, and you might can. That's when we went back to like laying the foundation of what the content is going to be like, then maybe you could revolve their content around, tell me a story or ask them questions. Whereas if they're more of an introvert, you might just need to strictly just get them doing their thing and you being visible in the background. So I feel like it's based on the client, how the content process goes. But when all else fails, spontaneous content I think is best, and you just record them doing their lives.
So what are some of the things people would need to actually create their content, like practically, like what, like a checklist? Like, what do I need to have with me or take with me?
Okay, so we gonna ball on the budget. Let's start with the basics. If you just starting out, all you need is your camera, your phone. That extra storage I was talking about, that's an add-on to it. You need your tripod. You might, and depending on, like with me, like I have the company phone and I have my phone, and I use 2 different angles. So if you have a couple cameras or budget friendly, it's okay. You could just do it 1, 2, but just a tripod, a phone. If they're talking, make sure you have microphones. You could literally go get some cheap microphones on Amazon, but make sure it's the quality sounding good. So I would say get like the $100 microphones. If that's too much for you guys, they have a lower budget, but it's not the best sound quality. So we have the microphones, we have the phone / camera, we have the tripod, and good lighting. If you got a ring light, you can order that one as well if you have it. I'm sure if a lot of y'all, especially my age, 21 around 18, y'all already know that y'all already got like some type of lighting, a ring light or something. But those are the 4 basics for starting out, and then just start with those basics and just work your way up and then get more advanced. But I would say, yeah.
So after like shooting the content, then like what are some resources for like editing it, right? Because like obviously, I mean, I guess you could post video exactly how you shot it, but usually you got to do something else to it, and then you got to add captions to it, and you got to like. So what are some other tools people can use? Let
me actually look. First of all, I'm not all advanced editing like Grace. Grace needs to teach me her tips, but I'm a CapCut girly. And with a CapCut, it's really simple to use, and it's just the basics of editing. And I feel like editing is not hard, especially like the basics. But once you get the grasp of like how the video you want in your head, and I like to get my music that I'm gonna add beforehand. A lot of people like to add their music afterwards. I'm like, no. The video has to go with the beat of the song, and it has to flow like that. Like it has to give that type of energy. But I actually have like an editing. So these are all like the editing apps that I use. So in my editing little, what would you call this? It's not a zip.
It's a folder.
Okay, that's a bit. So in my editing folder, I have CapCut. I have Visco. That's like for the editing of like the lighting. I have Facetune. And for like graphics, and if you just like want to add text or certain things, Canva. And then Adobe if you like on the laptop or whatever. But I don't really use Adobe. I feel like that's more for what Grace does. And then for captions, there's 2. There's this captions app, and then there's a Big Voo. And then I just be doing the editing on my phone and on my iPad. I don't really get into editing on my laptop. Computer.
And you mean like the captions on the video, like the words, the actual
it's actually called captions. And some of these you do have to pay subscriptions for if you want all of the things. Nothing's for free, guys.
Mm-hmm. And so if you're making content, for those of you who may be making content that's not video or that's not only video, you can still batch create. So you can pick a day, pick a time to sit down and say, okay, I'm going to do these things. So if you write blog posts or articles, if you want to make graphics, like infographics that's like explaining how to do something, even if you do carousels, you can still sit down and do that all at the same time. Obviously, you're going to need your computer or whatever you're going to write on. But you can also use software like ChatGPT or any other AI software that can kind of help you either generate ideas or like refine what you're writing. Obviously using Canva, if you're talking about graphics, that's one of the most, I would say, user-friendly platforms out there. Obviously, if you're more advanced, you can use stuff like Illustrator, Photoshop. But yeah, those are some things you can use to kind of help that process go along a little quicker. Now, we've mentioned content calendar a couple of times too. If you are going to go the kind of improvisational route, then you may want to create your calendar after the fact, which I think is that's what you did, right? After you shot content with that client, you came back and decided what needed to go on what day.
Yeah.
But that was based on what you had.
Yeah.
Right. So you can go that route. If you capture your content first, you can take an audit or an assessment of what you have and then decide, okay, this needs to go out on this day. But if you do it the structured route, you're doing that beforehand. So that's what we do internally at Don & Co. We plan out by the quarter what we want to talk about, what things need to be talked about, and we spread them out on a calendar. Some of that is based on like timely stuff. So like if there's a holiday or something that needs to be acknowledged, events that are happening that may be specific to us. So we go ahead and put those things on the calendar. Honestly, because it's a lot of the content is us, we take into consideration vacations, all of that stuff first. Then we start putting in place, the pieces of content we've already decided we wanted to do. And then for me personally, I like to do a retreat because we like to plan by the quarter. So I like to do a retreat. I like to go out of town somewhere for about 3 or 4 days and just focus on company stuff. And so that may be me writing stuff. If I need to update descriptions about stuff, I may do it then. But I also batch record. So because doing your hair, putting a little face on, looking decent, like that can take a lot of work. I don't want to have to do that all the time. So I like to do it 1 or 2 times, and then I go ahead and plan everything out. I'm the type also I like to write scripts because I'm very all over the place. And so if I don't plan and structure my stuff, I be done went down a whole nother rabbit hole. So I like to go ahead and write my scripts, and I may do that a different day than the day I record. And that way I can just set my stuff up one time. I may have some different clothes. We change clothes, but so that's kind of how I do it. But I'm able to do it like that because I literally already know what I'm recording. But like we were saying, the other way around, if you plan to shoot like that first and then you end up taking an audit of what you have, then you can be like, okay, well, this needs to go out on that day. And it may take some like tweaking around because there's some stuff you probably still do need to consider, like holidays and special occasions and events and things like that. But I remember you were telling one of the clients, I think they were talking about some piece of content that they were used to post, I think maybe weekly or something like that. And you've mentioned like wanting to schedule content or have a plan for when it goes out, almost like a TV show. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So having a digital presence, having a digital presence, everyone should look at themselves like a TV show. So I feel what I'm finna say, I'm gonna feel like you. But back when I was little, and we watched Disney Channel, Nickelodeon, things like that. Y'all focus. Back when I was little, when we watched Disney Channel, Nickelodeon, and all of the shows, Disney XD, I would be ready to see the premiere, and they would have, commercials and things on the episodes that are being premiering. And that's what you have to look at for your content. You have to look at yourself like a TV show that you're premiering, whether that is Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, whatever is best for you. But once you find out those days, you need to stick to it, and you have to keep the consistency, because that's based when they were airing a show, they can't, we're canceling, like we're not posting unless the whole show is canceled and discontinued. So you looking at yourself like a TV show, you have to post you have to be consistent, post these consecutive days, all your content that you said you're going to post on. And I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but people be wanting to get quick results so fast when it comes to like engagement and followers and likes and finding their audience. Like, and even with myself, like I've been the route of having like a whole bunch of followers on TikTok and on Instagram in the thousands and stuff, but I've recently felt led to delete my Instagram, and I deactivated my TikTok, and now I'm on a new Instagram and TikTok, and just building that strategy back of and that audience, that clientele. And I'm like, Angelina, you've done this before. Let's walk back through it. You need to at least post 50 to 100 posts before you even making it, unless you just have something that unless you empowering, entertaining, and educating that somebody really, really needs. Like, you need to get a feel of who you are and what your audience likes from 50 to 100 posts. So when people will be like, even myself, like posting 5 to 10 posts, like, why this not blowing up, or it's not getting a lot of engagement, this and the third, like, let the algorithm, let your audience feel what you like, so you could go back, look at what is the most attractive that you posted, what post is the most attractive, what has the most, shares, things like that, likes, comments. Yes. So, yeah.
I think that's an interesting take. Because I know for me, I used to be like that, and it wasn't so much because of a premiere or having and building anticipation type of thing. It was simply a control type of thing. Like, I just like structure. But the way that so many of these platforms algorithms have changed, it's almost like it don't matter when you post, because a post can get, a lot of traction 4 or 5 days after it went out, yeah. Right? Or like basically when people see it, mm-hmm. and when you post it, it is synchronized as it used to be. And so to a certain extent, you can have people who are expecting content from you, especially on a platform like a podcast or something like that. That makes a lot of sense. But like even on Instagram or TikTok, just because you posted it on a Monday, that don't mean everybody in your audience is going to see it on a Monday because of how their algorithm is. It may be Wednesday or Thursday before they see it. Mm. And it even if they saw it on Monday or Tuesday, that don't mean it's going to take off that day. So like for me, at least for us and our content, we tried to pull back from that a little from the structure, and just really experiment with different times and stuff. Like, I always knew that, and this, I guess you can consider this a hack, but like posting something in the wee hours of the morning, with the idea that you may be top of people's feed when they do start scrolling straight from their bed. Used to do that on Instagram. I've done it a few times with LinkedIn, even over the weekend, just to see what happens. Now, granted, there are times where I would say audiences are more primed on certain platforms. And so you do have a better chance of seeing a lot of traction early on in your posting window if you do, shoot for those time periods. But still, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have an audience there prime waiting to see your content on those platforms, because unless they're going to your page, unless you post often enough to where they always see you, they know you post stuff on those days, and then they're manually going to check you out. But that's such a deep level of like involvement and like I wouldn't even say fandom, but just like commitment to your brand, that it's probably not realistic to expect large swaths of people to do that, especially when you got a business that's like you got a dentist office, like that's just not gonna be appropriate for everybody, everything. So you got to temper your expectations. But
I will say this though, you're not posting for the algorithm, you're posting for yourself. Posting consistently like you're an episode or like you're a TV show is saying, how consistent can I be to myself? And you being consistent over time will, if you become 1% better every day, every post, you're going to build up to where people will start enjoying, and the algorithm and people will start enjoying your content more if you're being consistent and if you're making your videos and your content 1% better every day. So I try to look at it like that perspective, because if you get caught up in the algorithm, like you're going to basically, what's the term when you rot out? Burnout. Okay. when you're just gonna go into a burnout. So just pray over your content, ask Jesus, and give it to God. Do your part and let Jesus do the rest. But that's all I want to say about that part.
So when it comes to the actual content calendar, I mean, y'all can do it as like structured or as formal as you want to. So you can do like, you can use like something simple as the notes app in your phone, and you just say, if you choose days that you're going to post, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, whatever the case may be, you could just Monday, this date, this topic. You can also do, we like to use spreadsheets. We also use project management software. There's a bunch of them out there. You can use Asana. You can use Monday.com. There are a couple other like project management softwares where you can like plan stuff out like that. You can also do and we'll get into this in a second, but some of the platforms themselves that allow you to schedule content some of them have calendars and stuff built into them there. But really, you just need somewhere where you can document what needs to go out on what day. And again, that's regardless of whether you're planning that out ahead of time or after you've gotten your content and you need to decide. Because part of the reason, too, that we look at and we implement practices like this is because it is scalable and sustainable for a team, right? If it's just you kind of do what you want. But when you are only doing one part of this, then it is necessary to have a plan for how this entire thing goes so that as people get plugged in and do different parts, it can all go smoothly. And so if you are the person who's making the calendar or coming up with the content ideas, but you're not the person who's going to be actually on site recording, then we all need to know what needs to go out when, because somebody else is completely responsible for figuring out how we're going to capture that content. If you're going to be the person who's writing captions or writing content, you need to know what you need to be writing and what you need to be prioritizing, right? Like if I have a calendar and I know what's going out when, I can start with what's coming out the soonest and make sure I get that written up first, right? So in some cases, it can feel like it's a lot of work or a lot of planning or a lot of structure, especially when things feel like they're going to possibly change anyway. But on the other hand, it's just kind of creating muscle memory so that as other people get involved in the process, we don't have to uproot, everything. But the last piece, obviously, to posting social media content is posting the content. And so you can, just like with recording, you can decide to post it in real time, like right after you make it, or you can choose to schedule it. Now, real time, I would say some of the benefits to posting stuff in real time is that I feel like you as the individual, even if you are representing a company, you are more likely to engage on that platform, which is a big part of any social media strategy. Like I feel like a lot of us post and ghost, right? We put the content out there and we never come back to the platform. If you're the type to post stuff in real time, you were probably already on the platform. It's a really good chance you're probably going to use something or find something trending. It's a good chance that whatever you do post is probably going to be in that vein because you were probably already there. And I feel like there's a lot of, I feel like you get to reserve or preserve a lot of the authenticity, because it reminds me of back in the day when these platforms were new. That is how you posted on them. There was no scheduling, content. You just, if you had an idea, if you took a picture at your little cousin graduation, you posted it immediately. Some of your aunties still do that. There's a lot of value in that, right? But then scheduling it can save you some time. So if you do batch record, after you've recorded all the content, after you've edited it, right, you may have everything done. And I was like, well, I don't want the stress of, or the trouble of having to do something every day or every other day. Now you can schedule it. There are platforms you can schedule it on. So I know we use Buffer. I know in the past you've done some research on some other platforms. So what are some platforms people can use to schedule content?
Yeah. So I actually got a certification for school at UAB. And for our social media class, we got a Hootsuite certification. So that's like one of the top ones that I would probably recommend. We ball on a budget, so we using Buffer, and Later is a good one as well. So, yeah. And
nowadays, a lot of the platforms, because of like the rise of creators and businesses and the platforms understanding how people are using them, have implemented the ability to schedule in them natively. So you can, if you have Meta Business Suite, you can schedule Facebook and Instagram posts directly in that platform. LinkedIn gives you the ability to schedule posts directly in that platform. Most social media platforms give you the ability to do that now. Some of them have some different like exceptions. Some certain types of content you can't schedule ahead of time, or certain types of content that you do schedule, you aren't able to do all the things you want to be able to do, which again could be another benefit of posting kind of on the fly. Like on Instagram, if I'm not mistaken, you still can't schedule a post that would, I think, have a collaborator on it. I think you have to post it right then for it to be a collaborator. Otherwise, it moves to just a normal tag.
Instagram be making me mad.
And that's annoying, right? But it's like, but that is a benefit to posting in real time. You can take advantage of those platform features that you may lose out on if you schedule them through that platform or through another, especially a third-party platform, right? It's so many different things that, and it's getting better, but the reality is these platforms really don't want you anywhere other than the platforms. So they're going to make it a little difficult. But yeah, you can, or what we used to do back in the day when I first started working for.
Can I say a disclaimer? Y'all, I just be joking with Kayla. Much love. She's not that much older than me. I just be joking.
Not.
Continue.
But
I feel like I triggered something.
Before I literally was doing this for clients before you could schedule content. So what I would have to do is put just a reminder in my phone. I had a folder that had all of the pictures and all the videos and stuff, and I had captions saved in a notes document, and I would have to just put reminders in my phone at the time I wanted to post to go ahead and do it. So it was still a lot of work because I had to do it, but at least it was quicker because I had everything I needed. I just needed to go ahead and post it. But you can do that still, because it allows you to take advantage of some of those features when it comes to posting that you may or may not be able to do if you schedule it. But whatever works for you, right? Like whatever is going to allow you, kind of to your point with planning it like a TV show, whatever is going to allow you to be the most consistent is what you really need to lean into. And so the hope with this conversation is just to give you some options about how you could potentially approach that. But whatever's going to work for you, whatever's going to work for your team, that ensures you all remain consistent. That's also true for the frequency, like how often you post on social media, how often you decide to batch record, if you're going to batch record. There are a lot of factors that go into that, but ultimately, what is sustainable for you? Like, what are you going to be able to maintain? Because after a while, like she said, consistency does just get rewarded on those platforms. And so you want to be primed for that. So to wrap things up, the foundation of the conversation is that there are really like two ways to approach making social media content. You can be a little bit more spontaneous, improvisational, guerrilla content creating, if you will, or you can take some time, do some deep research, plan out everything to the T, and then kind of go from there. And then obviously the steps to getting it done would be to figure out what you're going to post, decide how you want to capture the content, create the content, do it, actually record it, create it, whatever the case may be, and then obviously post it. So I'm curious to hear from you, since we've kind of talked through this a little bit more in detail than we had before. Like, what are some of your takeaways?
I would say be authentically you. I would say be consistent. And then the last thing I would say is have fun. At the end of the day, say social media, man. Don't let it burn you out. And Kayla, you're not old.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the having fun part is important. This is work. And for some of us, it is literally our job. So it's easy to like, at least for me, it's easy to like over formalize this. But it should be fun. Like it should feel fun. It should feel like you should feel creative juices flowing. Like if you're making content or doing really any part of this process and you don't have other ideas flowing, you probably ain't doing it right. Like, you should be able to have you a little list to the side of other stuff. Like, oh, now I got this idea to do this. Because that happens to me when I do batch record. And that's part of why I do it. I'm able to have other ideas. And because I've already decided to do it at one time, I'm usually able to slide some other stuff in there. Did that video come out? I think we had a video come out last week. One of my most favorite ones that I recorded. Actually, it really wasn't even a video that was my favorite. It was the cover graphic. I might have to ask Grace if she can put the cover, because she don't know. I decided to do like a paying attention to Instagram and to what millennials like. We love to hear somebody explain something while we doing something totally unrelated. So I did that with some coffee. But the cover graphic, it's just my favorite. It's like, I had so much fun. I was so tickled at myself because I looked like a meme. I looked just like the meme. Grace gonna put it on the screen. I thought it was hilarious.
Okay.
But to her point, have fun.
Yeah.
Have fun.
You like it, I love it.
And we know I be loving it.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway.
All righty.
Well, we, as always, appreciate y'all for tuning in to another episode of A Marketing Podcast. Until next time.
All right, guys.